B, Mr. Charles Bradford. District C, Mr. James Green.
Here.
District D, Mr. Derek Green.
Present.
District E, Mr. Howard Law. We have four.
All right. Let us stand, please. For prayer. Heavenly Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, as we approach your throne, we ask that you would give us a heart and mind to serve the public in a manner which is pleasing in thy sight. As we approach this Easter holiday, we pray for safety and that we will embrace your love with one another. To the blessings and others, we ask in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Attorney Jones, I don't care about sheets to read off the prerequisites. Do you have it available?
Yeah, I think I have. Okay, I'll read it all.
Which is, thank you.
Louisiana law provides that the public is allowed to comment on things. This is what called public comment period. Members of the public shall be allowed to make comments regarding items on the agenda by identifying the item on the agenda, their name, and their address. Will be given up to 5 minutes to speak on item, not to exceed 30 minutes in total, unless the council approves otherwise. Members of the city government, employees, and officers of it are not required to answer any questions. It is not a question and answer session for you to be able to voice your concerns regarding items on the agenda.
Thank you. Announcements. I know we have several Easter egg hunts going on. Crawfish Festival is going on this week. May Madness is coming up. It will occur before we have another meeting. Are there any other announcements?
Just the hospital tax will be on the ballot the same day as the mayoral election. If we just voted yes for our hospital tax, we need our hospital.
Are there any other announcements?
Okay,
Go ahead.
we got an election on the 3rd coming up for District D in the mayor's race.
Thank you. Those announcements. Any public comments? Okay. That brings us down to items on the agenda. Number 1, introduce on ordinance to establish a moratorium on solar farms. It was your request for this meeting, Mr. Green?
No, ma'am.
No,
Oh.
this is Mr. Green.
I forgot. Yes.
It was your request for this?
Yes.
Okay. You want to take the lead in?
No, the attorney, he's got some, they're gonna read it off.
So, had a request to produce an ordinance that would place a temporary moratorium on approval of special use and site development permits for additional solar farms in the city. That tonight's just introduction of that. What it would do is it put in place a 12-month period from the date of adoption, and it relates back to from the date of introduction. Any new special use permits or site development plans would be halted until the city had time to study regulations, to be able to put in place regulations to make those things. Specifically, it says, whereas in adopting this ordinance, the Bastrop City Council recognizes that solar farms present a unique need for site development regulations given the acreage involved in the developments, the characteristics of the structures constructed and placed on these properties, the potential impact of neighboring properties, the potential impact of vehicle traffic, and other factors. It's just goes through and it's simple. It just says that for a 12-month period, while they're studying to put in place regulation of it that we currently do not have, we don't have an actual solar farm ordinance. So they come as special use permits or site development permits. And so what it would do is give time to study those permits, to determine what is a governable set of regulations, if any, to be able to accomplish this need and hear from the public and the public's concern regarding them. And so it's just introduction tonight. There's nothing to vote on. It just has to be introduced. It'll have to be advertised. Once it's advertised, then we'll have a meeting to adopt it at adoption.
So at that point of information, at that point, is this when the public get to weigh in on how they feel emotionally?
Correct. They could weigh in tonight on introduction. They could weigh in at the adoption hearing that night.
Okay.
Because we still have to advertise. That's been produced in the official journal, just as it's done over a period of time. We'll have an affidavit of publication to show that we did it as it's required by all the ordinances. And there'll be an adoption hearing on that night.
Yeah, because I definitely think we should give the public time at least to speak about it in a short time.
My suggestion is that, like other things that we've done and things that we know are probably hotly contested items, my suggestion would be also put in the notice of a public hearing to occur before the meeting. That way you can kind of take those people ahead of time, do the public hearing, then come into the meeting, and then you have your public hearing prior to the meeting, and you have all your people who can voice concern, do things like that, ask things. You'd have representatives come from places or wherever to any interested party on any side can be here to present stuff to the board rather than just public comments period. It gives a more of ability to have a dialogue session if there is, or to get outside and bring in all the people who may not be residents here but have businesses that want to come in and do it, or any influence to speak and concern. I would just suggest do a public hearing before it. Notice that there's going to be a public hearing before it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So what is going to happen is there going to be any movement on any more solar plants?
So with this, if you'll notice down in the provision, it is the bottom of the first page. It says that the moratorium effective by this ordinance shall not apply to any continued permitting and construction of solar farms pursuant to and in furtherance of applications that have been granted by the city of Bastrop prior to the date of introduction. So from the date of introduction until adoption, this ordinance covers up through the date of introduction. So it puts in place at that point.
And I have another question for clarification. I know, Mr. Jones, you live in Washita Parish. Are you versed in the moratorium that we just passed?
I am. And to be honest with you, the Washita Parish Police Jury actually passed a solar farm ordinance that was piggybacked off the one that originated out of Sterlington, which was a place where we worked with several developers, energy companies, and actually built that 26-page ordinance that existed. It's very voluminous regulations as to shrubs, what has to look like. But it took into account a lot of beautification. A police juror reached out to us after we adopted it and said, hey, could you send us a copy of that? A copy of that was sent over there. They subsequently adopted that ordinance, that big set of regulations that exist with decommissioning plans and everything. And subsequent to that, they heard from their constituents, hey, we might want to study this a little more. You know, it was one of those things where it was just a little bit of interest in it, and all of a sudden interest just ballooned. And said, hey, we want to take 6 months to look at this and make sure that what we're doing covers and makes us consistent.
And it's point of information, and it's like a house bill right now in regards to solar panels.
Is there a housing bill?
Yeah, I think it was introduced. I want to say House Bill 615 maybe.
I will say this, I'm not fully aware of the House bill that relates to it. I'm not surprised, considering it is a very hotly contested thing. It is very litigious, there was a site down in South Louisiana, that's how it first got on our radar about the regulation of it. It was one of those things that when planning and zoning ordinances were passed, it wasn't something that it wasn't in the mindset of most municipalities while they did it. Most planning and zoning ordinances and boards come from the early 2000s, and ours most recently was redone in 2014. During that 10-year time period of the mid-2000s to the mid-2010s, nobody had on their radar this. And so it always fell in a provision of there's no real subchapter of this. Everything was kind of at that point either manufacturing, agricultural, or residential. This cuts right between everybody. And so people were using special use permits, people were using variances. And so what happened is there was a lot of litigation down south about would they grant a variance or a special use permit, and it became very contested and very litigious. At that point, we decided, hey, once somebody buys something and they go to develop it, we can't stop them from developing once they've developed it. So how do you get in front of it is we reached out to the players, Energy, several big large energy companies, said, what do you look for in solar farms? Then we reached out to several firms who represented those municipalities about what the concerns were, what you heard from the concerns, and we took about 6 months to develop our ordinance and developed an ordinance that works well for the area that it is. Every area is different. That area tends to be more residential than it is anything business related. We're kind of a pass-through entity in Sterlington. And then the police jury adopted almost an identical one and quickly realized, hey, that may not fit our needs. We need to really have some study on this because it is a very voluminous field of potential things. And it is, I will say this, I've been through 3 public hearings on those ordinances. They were always, the town hall was always packed with people. There was people on against it, for it, and very passionate about it, but it is something that we did study in depth.
I have another point of information. So can you just break it down to the meat of that ordinance? Are they allowed in city limits or outside the city limits?
So in Washita Parish, which governs the unincorporated areas of Washita Parish, not Monroe City, Westmore, or anything, or Sterlington, or Richwood, they do allow them, but with the moratorium is stopped. So they did have a provision that regulated, allowed it, and then they put a moratorium in place that stopped any new permitting, anything until they studied it further to make sure that their ordinance had the stuff in place. So currently at this point in Washita Parish, there's a prohibition, or not prohibition, but a moratorium stopping any new approval.
So how many are operating and running within the city limits?
In the city limits of Sterlington, currently there are 2, but it's kind of, 2 is a number that doesn't sound correctly, but one of those sites is approximately almost 1,200 acres.
And where's that located?
So whenever you come off 165, you head down Highway 2, headed to Union Parish, that property all to the right that used to be farmland, all of that property was sold by the Pates family to the company to develop it, and that's beginning development at this point.
I got a point of information.
Go ahead.
My point is that I think that we all need to talk to the people in the area. I'm gonna bring this council, I'm gonna go back when I was code enforcement. And Mr. Pierre was the attorney. And I think everybody know where I'm going. They was gonna build some apartments out by close to Walmart area. And it was in District C. Mr. Shaw is sitting in this seat that I am right here. So, Attorney Pierre, who's in our meeting, Mary, you may recall this. So the zoning board turned it down. So they brought it to the city council. So who's in the meeting? And the reason I say we need to be consistent, because we turned those people down. That was economic development also. We turned those people down because the reasoning was that we didn't do a study of the area and we didn't talk to the people. Therefore, it was null and void because we didn't complete the process before it came before the council. Now, they didn't want it then, and it was out by Walmart. I think we should afford the same people, the same thing over here in this area with those pounds at. If you're gonna go and turn something down because you didn't poll the peoples in the area, I know because I was code enforcement. We turned them down because we didn't do our due diligence to talk to the people in the area. So you turn them down, but you come and you reward or award solar panels over here, but you didn't do a study. So if we're gonna do it over there, let's be consistent. I think the people should speak and not special interests. We serve the people, not special interest groups. So what I'm saying is, it's nothing personal against the people that got it. I'm going back on what this council did, what this administration did, what the attorney representing Baxter did. They turned him down and didn't even allow the man to speak. Because they said, once we turn you down, you got 2 years before you even come back and talk to us about bringing those apartment backs. The man said, I'm going to Minden. Now, do this council remember that?
I remember that.
don't mean with that before.
So what I'm saying is, you can't do one thing on this hand and turn around and do another and then ostracize me because I asked questions. Because when Mr. Shaw was in this seat, nobody said a mumbling word. When the same board turned it down, the same administration turned it down, but all of a sudden, I just want due diligence for the people in that area. And mind you, that's a small portion of it belongs to District C. Most of the people that surrounded and encompass it belongs to District B. So if people voice their District D, if they voice their opinion, then I got a right to listen to the people because we're elected to serve the people. So what I'm saying is, go back, rewind the tape, go back and look at the records. So it's not like, I didn't feel this negative energy when Mr. Shaw turned it down, when this board turned it down, but all of a sudden, now we speak out about something that you approved, but you didn't do the vetting right. So if it was no void then, Attorney Jones, I think the same should apply to this. If you're gonna require one person, you're not gonna let them get a business permit because you didn't poll the people in the area. What is the difference? Is it the geographic location? I'm just asking a question. What is the difference? It's both in District C. Mind you now, I'm not talking about some other district. This other district was District C also. Mr. Shaw was here before myself. So what I'm saying is, if you're gonna do it because if you turn that down because you didn't go talk to the people in that area, let's keep the same consistency. I'm not for it or against it. I'm for whatever the people want. But what I'm saying is we have to be fair, transparent, honest, and don't seem like you picking and choosing where you gonna strategically allow people to come. So therefore, what I'm saying is I think this moratorium, and I'm probably gonna get ostracized about it, but the truth is the truth. Because the voters elected us, not special interest group. We serve the people of our districts. So I'm not worried about what nobody says because I'm doing the right thing. I can sleep good at night because I'm consistent, I'm fair, I'm honest. I don't care whether you're black, white, rich, poor, or whatever. You have to maintain a consistency. You have to be honest, open, and fair, no matter who it is. No matter how much money they have or how poor they have, or no matter how poor they are. We are all Americans, and we should be afforded the same rights, whether you have money or not. When you get ready to start a business in the city of Bastrop, you can look for consistency, fairness, and honesty. And that's my take on it.
Madam Chair, I have some information I'd like to read. I did a little research.
Go ahead, Ms. Pat.
In the late 1800s, Johnson & Johnson developed a baby powder to be used for generations on their babies. Who would have known that the ingredient in the baby powder, talc, contained asbestos? And asbestos has been linked to cancers including mesothelioma, ovarian and lung cancer. In 2023, the company banned the use of talc and undergoing right now 62,000 lawsuits across the country and has proposed over $9 billion settlement. Who would have known that the workers at our Louisiana mill, right here in Bastrop, were being exposed to asbestos, which is a known cancer agent? Many men, women would die because of failed treatments or be totally incapacitated due to illness. Last week, one of our speakers stated that she would not have a solar panel on her property because she had cattle. Burn pits have been identified by the Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA, as a presumptive cause of cancer. Respiratory cancers, head and neck cancers, brain cancer, and other type cancers. Kidney cancers as well as reproductive cancers. While solar panels do not emit radiation, and I'm saying that clear. The equipment used in the farms does. This radiation may be harmful to people. While there is no definitive safe distance, it is generally recommended to live at least 500 meters or about 1,630 feet from large-scale solar farms. I did the math, that's about 5 football fields. And 656 feet for smaller farms. Solar inverters do emit both radio interference and electromagnetic radiation, which can reduce life expectancy. Morehouse Parish already has a higher than average cancer incidence rate compared to state and national averages. Louisiana's cancer rate is higher and getting higher every year. I cannot definitively say that these solar panels cause cancer, but in the words of the great late Dr. Cox, if there's smoke, there's fire.
And I got one other thing I want, point of information. This is one of information to the administration, who was probably part of, the discussion as to bringing them here. I heard at the last meeting, they was talking about taxes, how much the tax was gonna be. Anybody can tell you anything. When you deal with businesses, you deal in facts. So I think whoever was gonna bring it in should have got with the council or somebody and gave us some kind of data as to what it was going, what kind of, what it was going, how was it going to benefit the city of Bastrop? Give us the pros and cons of it. But to this day, I heard the man say he spoke to somebody on the council, 1 or 2 people on the council, but it was not a formal city. So just because somebody new on the council or somebody in the community knew, we are the governing agency of the city. Look like if you're gonna bring something here, you can come and let us know what's gonna be the benefits. And we've talked about taxes, talking about 1.4 or something. Well, when you look at the one going out toward Gay versus the one over here, that is a drop in the bucket as to what they got out there. I don't know how many acres they have out there going to Galleon, but Attorney Jones, roughly how many acres behind us than over here?
I don't know how many acres this one is over here.
Based on your assumption,
It's a couple acres.
couple acres. So based on your knowledge of solar farms, that little 2 acres, do you believe it's going to produce $1.4 million in taxes? I see you smiling. I ask a question.
It's the amount of acres that is increased with solar farms just varies on the project, but generally speaking, a municipality that tends to be residential and business, it's a small amount of acreage compared to what they typically would occupy for large farms.
Yes, sir. You can't vote that. Of course, you did great. You did great.
If you want to tell me the answer, I'll tell you about it.
Okay, never mind. You're the attorney. You can't give an assumption, but just based on, because you deal with these all the time.
Yeah, correct. I've dealt with a good bit of them. And typically, we're dealing in the hundreds of acres to thousands of acres.
That's my point, because if you was gonna get $1.4 million for that little thing over there, people with 5 or 6 acres, they'll be everywhere. Because that's a good return on investment. But I'm saying when people come throw figures out and don't back up facts, then that's no avoid. I think when you're a business and you advocate for that business, I think you should bring facts to the table and let the facts speak, not the person. Facts don't lie. So what I'm trying to get at, that figure was thrown out at the last meeting. There was going to be 1 point.
I think the figure was based on so many vote numbers.
So exactly, that's what I'm talking about. And I looked at the footage, and I looked at the squares, and the math don't math. It's not adding up. So what we got to be cognizant of because we represent the people. And if I was a spokesman for a company, I'm just gonna give you an example, I'm not knocking nobody. If I was a spokesman for a company and I went to New York as a spokesman to sell you something or to get you to buy something or get something from you, I'm gonna give you the best because I'm the company man and I'm sent there to sell you a product. I'm sent there to make you buy a product because I'm going because I'm probably the best in the company at advertising or trying to get you to purchase something. What I'm saying is the people that came before us, if you for it and you got an interest in it, and that's part of you, you are definitely gonna speak positive of it. That's just common sense. Nobody would send anyone to speak about something and they be a representative, don't talk negative about it. How long do you think you'll have a job? If I'm selling something, I go speak bad about it. They probably won't even fly me back to Bastrop. What I'm getting at is, don't just listen to the company. We have to listen to the people and let the people speak. No special interest, no outside influence. We listen to the people of the city of Bastrop because that's who live here and that's who's going to determine the future of the city of Bastrop. Not outsiders, nothing. So I'm just asking a question about the revenues. And Ms. Tappan, have you met the people that's over, the company? You have been in dialogue with them?
No, I have not.
Councilman Green?
The people of the company?
Yeah.
I talked to a worker before.
A work. And we city government, and it's sitting right less than
I think the
200 yards from us, and no one up here knows anything about it. That's just astounding to me. It's just appalling. And I'm disappointed because when you speak out about something that you feel like is wrong, and the powers to be try to ostracize you and criticize you because they feel you're supposed to be silenced. Well, gatekeepers are no more. We speak up for what's right and what's wrong. So you can't get anybody to come in and try to tell us how to vote. Only way we're gonna vote is with our constituents because every 4 years, they're gonna vote you in and they're gonna vote you out.
Point of information, Kevin. You stated that you have dealings with a lot of these solar panels.
I've dealt with solar panel and solar farms extensively. The regulations regarding the zoning of them and things like that.
So have anybody that you been involved with in any type of environmental study before granted solar panel?
So most of the places that we didn't have environmental studies with ours because the issue of where they were was our largest solar farm was in what was basically zoned for, it was land that had no zoning on, it was dedicated as undeveloped land. So we had undeveloped land, it abutted undeveloped land, it abutted roads, it was in undeveloped areas. So we didn't have necessity. There are places who have asked, hey, we want to see what an environmental impact looks like on this, and have required the environmental impacts of the brought forward. That was a debate that occurred, but ultimately because the areas where it was going to occur at, it wasn't necessary for us. If you'll notice where that area is, it's right next to the Entergy plant that is a plant that produces a pretty good amount of distillates anyways, and the Angus plant was next door. So in our case and scenario, that was an area that really not much development was going to happen anyways because of the fact of the previous issues that had occurred with the Angus plant. There's what we call a buffer zone, and we have a history of trying to keep that buffer zone if something would happen again. So for us, it was a win-win because it brought in something that made that land useful that otherwise was just going to be buffer zone land.
Point of information again, sir. I just want to reflect clarity. I want to get clarity. I didn't say I was against it. I said I'm for what the people want. I'm telling this council what they did when I was code enforcement. I'm letting this administration know what you done when I was code enforcement. I'm telling you, you got to keep the same, you got to apply the same thing uniformly. I'm not the council, but you know what I'm talking about when they voted on it, how it came up. What I'm getting at, if the people want it in the district, I'm all for it, but what I'm saying is I think you need to go out and ask the people that is going to immediately adversely affect, go out and ask them.
That's my question, because I was done.
Okay, yes, sir.
On it tonight, sir. But I was gonna ask you on different point of information. So should a populated area have a study done on it before being granted one?
You know, that's up to the council if they want to do it. I will say this, there's
Well,
been
legally-
every public hearing that I've been at, there's people who express health concerns and cite articles as Councilperson Tappan has cited regarding that. And that's ultimately a concern that if you allocate is a concern, that's something you want to see. That's what the governing authority is here for, is to see things they want to see in order to approve things. And that is one of the reasons why you need a regulation in place, so that you know everybody is very clear of what's going on, instead of having special permits issued where the council is finding out about these things as they get issued, and they have constituents who say, hey, I'd like to see
Yeah,
something about this.
And that's a big concern, I'm pretty sure with all of us. So what can we do to prevent it? Like, you know, how,
Well, I
and I
think,
guess that was the point of us talking about zoning, you know, us being involved and being transparent with our constituents, because when we out there, we have to respond, and it's saying, I don't know, or.
the greatest thing is that you would, during this time period, as part of your study, we would develop things in the ordinance that would require, if there were going to be a solar panel, solar farm, that can be one of the things that you add in there, is that yes, you'll need to submit with it, in addition to like a pro forma, you would submit a environmental impact study to show what it's gonna be. There's no, you don't have to take any action on it, it's just an introduction.
So they will for the next 30 days. Okay,
Point of information before you move on, just quick advice. So what about the permits that's in district, because they supposed to meet and all this, I'm just want some clarity. So is this retro?
So
or
this,
from this date
this
forward?
goes, so the ordinance reads that it applies to permits, it does not apply to permits that have been granted prior to the date of introduction of this ordinance.
So anything prior to this meeting, just don't apply to.
This does not apply to that.
Well, have you? Well, I see what you just read. And my point is, and I asked you specifically, you know, when I was talking to you, I want to make sure, Ms. Holmes, she's grants the thing. What about the permits over in my district? Have they been issued?
And we talking about the solar panel, correct?
So, now,
this home doesn't grant, it is, it's on board.
no, that's not my point, but I'm asking her, it's her office up there, I'm asking her, have they came and got a permit from the city of Bastrop? That's what she do, that's her job.
Okay.
Okay,
For Paul.
yes, ma'am,
Speaking of the IT location.
yes, ma'am.
I think it may be on this week's schedule. It may have already been done, and it's just going to the board.
What can we do to stop this?
Well,
I have to check.
it's a special use permit?
Have to be.
Well, there's two ways.
I don't know that it is for that location. I'd have to look over the notes, and I don't have anything with me.
If it's a special use permit, per the ordinances, the administrator makes a recommendation about it, and it goes to planning and zoning for their approval.
Who made that recommendation?
The administrator,
That's the code enforcement.
code enforcement. Then it goes to the planning and zoning commission for their approval or disapproval. If there's an appeal from there, then it goes to the board of adjustments.
So being that we don't have a code enforcement, how do the process work now?
I don't know who's your administrator at that point, because you don't have somebody who is in that capacity. And I don't know who all is named administrator for planning and zoning, but whoever the named administrator is, that's an official.
Point of
And that's an
information,
official job.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me who the administrator is, meaning that
We,
we don't want to have code enforcement?
we are going to post that job since it has been vacated. Been vacated for about 2 weeks. About 2 weeks now.
Hello, so you gonna post the zoning, the code enforcement job, right?
Right.
So that's why I asked Devin, being that we don't have a code enforcement, what's the next, how is the process handled now?
So your process currently, if you have, this is assuming that the thing I need clarification on is who is the administrator? If it was the code enforcement officer was appointed the administrator, which is an official, that person, if we don't have one, then if you submitted a special permit, there would be no administrator to make a recommendation on, and that would leave them unable to make a decision on that.
Well, so, Teresa, if I'm not mistaken, I just heard Ms. Holmes said that maybe this process started last week, meaning that we didn't have and the mayor said that the code enforcement job was posted for 2 weeks, so we didn't have no.
Not posted, I have not posted, it has been vacated.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm sorry, right. It's been vacant for 2 weeks, so meaning that, how did that process work?
So if the process of special uses, and that's what I have the little sheet on, the flow chart.
I see it. So,
So the administrator reviews and recommends it, and then it goes to planning and zoning for the hearing and for the approval or disapproval.
Yeah, that's what I
So
was
if there's no administrator there, then there's a step that cannot be made.
point of information then, sir. If there's no administrator, what's the purpose? You can't move forward without administrator, and they don't have administrator, so it look like everything gonna fall anyway. Because you don't have an administrator to make a recommendation to the board.
I have.
So this is a mute point, so shouldn't nothing be moving forward until we have an administrator? Glad you read that out. So anything else going now is no void, it's because we are absent of administrator.
And Teresa, can I please read, in the, minutes as well, that what we just stated?
Because we don't have anybody to make a recommendation.
So what's the point of having a meeting? Did he do some things maybe before he resigned?
I don't know whether if that one had been reviewed before. But specifically, if you look on this sheet of paper, 16.2.9, provision C says reviewed by administrator, down in number 2, it says administrator shall provide notice as set out in 16.2.1 of the common review procedures. And that's where it falls at, is they have to provide that, and they have to provide review of the application.
I see he approved the first one, but then they coming to get another permit they coming to get something this Monday, right?
So the question is, if that was reviewed and the notices were sent out, provide notice, if the administrator had provided notices.
Did you know, did the administrator do that? I'm going back when they turned down the, place over there by Walmart. The same thing happened. The code enforcement officer was out, and then I was filling in for him. The exact same thing transpired, what's going on now.
Yeah.
He did not do his due diligence, and therefore it was turned down. So what is the difference now? We don't even have one, so he can't be doing anything.
So that one fell under 16.2.10, which is the next chapter, which is zoning map amendment, because they need a zoning map amendment to do it. And one of the requirements is if I had it printed out for you, it says pre-application conference with administrator, then meeting with neighborhood, and then submit application to administrator. Where that one failed at was that when it came through the planning commission, they had a public hearing and recommend, and then it comes to the city council and its zoning map amendments. What happened is at the meeting with the council for the public hearing and the decision, it was realized that, from what I'm being told, that the meeting with the neighborhood had to occur, which was a procedural step that had to occur.
So being that they are coming Monday to get approved for their permit, right?
Correct.
So I'm assuming that at the time, the former code enforcement made a recommendation.
He would have to, I mean, it's not right for them to make, as the planning and zoning commission, that would be something that's purview to ensure that the procedure was.
So what I'm asking now is, and they haven't received the permit now. can we stop it until we get our ordinance on the record?
So can you start, if they haven't, if there was no administrator review and the notices sent out by the administrator, which was code enforcement, if that did not occur, then it is not right for decision, because procedurally it's not there.
But how this one I'm asking as well, how do we know that, how we know that former code enforcement didn't?
Because the notices that get sent out would be, you'd have to keep records.
So in other words, for point of information, you're saying that there's no way the code enforcement that was there at the time gave a recommendation to receive this permit?
I don't know what they did or didn't. They could have done it in advance, because the notices in 16.2.1, I'll read them to you.
Well, let me ask you this before you move on.
Yeah, I don't know. The notices are probably gonna say, and I'm just gonna pull it up, that you have to have certified mail to certain people and notices and staking, but I'm fixing to get there and tell you.
What about those permits approved by right? What are we gonna do about that? Is that one that's approved by right?
Right. Like they have a right to permit.
Meaning it don't.
You don't have to go through all those steps.
So those are gonna be permits that are, whenever you have, the only way you get there is if you have a special use permit, variance, zoning map amendments. You don't have something that is within the category that's spelled out by planning and zoning ordinances that you currently have. If it meets and fits within it, that's within the administrator's review to be able to approve those. That's what you mean by, if there has to be an ordinance that specifically allows that.
Do we have one?
That allow solar farms? No, we don't have a solar farm ordinance at all.
Okay, I got a point of information, Mr. Jones, Attorney Jones.
Okay, did I hear, somebody, Mr. Green, or Mr. Did your question get answered?
Well, he can go.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. J. Green.
You talked about code enforcement. When you look at, remember I was talking about that blue book, you told me blue and white, whatever.
Yeah.
Code enforcement book, so everybody that's listening there know what I'm talking about, code enforcement book. When you read the code enforcement book, you code enforcement officer, you look at a book and they come in and try to get something, you look at the zone and they got little dots by it. If it's got dots by it, then he can approve it. If it does not, then it go to the zoning board. And if it's turned down, then the city council always has the final say so. But what I'm getting at on the, even if it's outright, and he approves something, and because it's written up, does not mean the council still cannot reject application. Because in 2016, when that book was redone, anything was concrete. When you looked in that book, if it had dots by it, it wasn't no mechanism. It was nobody could help you. It was like over with and done. But then they came in with this Holmes can attest to this. 2000, I think it's 2016 or 15, they made some amendments. Follow me on this. So if they can make amendments 2015, we can always make amendments. That's another point of contention when I was going to speak about what people think that it's solid. No, council can always make changes to it. But my thing about it is, it was done because it was so stringent. That book was so stringent, but they want to put things in different places, but it was not allowed. So what they did is they carved out a caveat. They said, hey, okay, this is what we can do. If we're going to allow this business, we need to go back and rewrite it so we can issue special zoning permits. That's what that kind of came up in at. So what they did is when they wrote that up about special zoning, now it comes back to bubble, code enforcement, we're not gonna call it that, code enforcement, then zoning, and then the council. What I'm getting at, if they got the ability to make pickers and choosers, to turn down and to approve, wouldn't that same thing apply to an elected group of city councilors? Just food for thought. I'm not asking you your personal take on it. I'm just thinking about how it's been working. They go out and they pick, okay, you can come, you can't, because you give us first special zoning permit. It was all done to include and exclude, if you kind of follow what I'm saying, because Ms. Holmes, I don't want to put you into this discussion, but Ms. Holmes definitely knows the rules and regulations because I relied on her a lot when I was up there. So I'm not just shooting off the hip. This is facts. Only thing I'm saying is that the zoning board, they can do what they want to do, but also it's always should fall back up on elected board.
So what happened is with that set of amendments is the council at that time voted to remain the final authority on action in 4 categories.
Can we do it, can we almost do it like we do, the liquor license? Once they
You
come
can, it's just this whole body of things that was adopted during that time gave away that authority to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Adjustments and the administrator, except in 4 categories, which would be 5 categories after this thing's adopted. The 4 categories that the council has the final say in is zoning text amendments, zoning map amendments, planned developments, and planned industrial developments.
Well, since you spoke about this, since you can read it, you can research it, you know what we gave away, we want it back.
And so that's what that 2014 amendment is.
Well, it's a new day and time now, because whenever it was 2015, you see when you sign stuff and you don't do due diligence and do the research, you see how it come back. That's why we require that when we read something, it don't be given to us on that day. Because now, based on what you just read, it's kind of appalling and kind of mind-boggling. You said the council gave away, I wasn't even here. I wasn't even probably in 2000 and whenever. You said they gave away their rights except for 4 categories?
Except for 4 categories.
Well, you the attorney for the city council, the mayor and this administration, and as finance chairman, we're gonna work together because we need to look over and reevaluate it, because if they made some amendments in 2014, we're gonna need to make some amendments in 2025. Because wow, this is kind of mind-boggling.
I have a point of information or comment.
Go ahead, Ms. Chapman.
I think we're missing an important part of this Collins Lane property. I think everything's ready to go. I think this was approved by right, am I right? They're ready to go. So what can we do to stop this? Because all the other steps we're talking about does not have to be done for this property. What we think it needs to be done does not need to be done. Everything's approved for that.
So they have a special use permit.
They don't need it. They don't need it, right?
It's on the agenda as an item that was approved. And those usually come as an approved item.
I do the first one.
Wow.
Hold on, let me take a
And Ms. Holmes, would you look up the steps which the company in which they're speaking of? Please,
I'm sorry.
and would you look the steps up while we're in this layover mode, but you were about to say something that addresses, go ahead, Ms. Holmes. But I want you to look up the steps they've already taken. Okay, Ms. Hall, if you were speaking to the microphone, this is a public meeting,
Okay,
please.
I apologize. I have before me on my system a copy of the zoning map. We're looking at the location of the Colliers Lane property. And I'm going to our code of ordinances on the mini code website to find our ordinances and the zoning ordinance on the website.
Okay. Okay, you'll look up what steps they've taken, they went before zoning. It's not an issue going to the Board of Adjustments.
And that's,
Let us find out where they are in this whole process.
That's just this. It's called.
Well, even, so Monday they come in to receive a permit, right?
She said that already, it's already been done. They're not gonna get anything. It's done. So we need to know what do we need to do to halt that, since it's already been done by right.
Yeah, so
More
they,
involved in this.
yeah, that'd be something that I would be more cautious of giving you legal advice on that.
Ms. Holmes will have time to review and look up the steps that have already been taken. Provide you with more precise information.
One more
Okay.
question for this man.
Go ahead, Ms. Chandler.
So I know we've been talking, has a written contract of any sort been executed? I know we've given them they have the permit by right, and she'll find the paperwork for that. There's no actual contract between the city and that company, right? Or am I thinking about it wrong? Well,
Yeah, so it's not it's contract principles in the instance that your permit creates a contract that says they're authorized to do it. And so their detrimental reliance on that, if it were to cost them anything, could potentially subject you to liability, because you do have a ordinance, you do have in the code thing that talks about how you can revoke a permit. And the things you can revoke it for, you have to revoke it for they're in violation of the ordinance.
okay, I got one other question for you. Point of information, kind of confused, I was in code enforcement. You said it was appointed by right, outright. I'm not, did I hear that right?
that's me, yeah.
Ms. Holmes, you said it was appointed by right, right?
It's on my.
No, yes, ma'am. You said it was appointed by right. Now, I was in code enforcement. You know what by right means? That means don't go to the board. That means the code enforcement looks at those dots and he says, okay, I can approve it. So if it went to the board, it was not by right. It was the board had to grant them permission to do it. Because if it was by right, it wouldn't have to go to the board. You wouldn't need a board. Because McDuffie, the code enforcement, I just told you, where's that book? I can show it to you. When they got the little dots by it, you don't have to go to nobody. You just say, it's by right, it's outright. It's already approved. Here you go. Here you come. Here go your application. Go over to see Mr.
So by right, for technical term, is they were issued a zoning permit.
Hold it right there. Hold it. It went to the board, right?
Yeah, so that's what we did.
It went to the board. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
It went to the board. I kind of know what I'm talking about. It went to the board.
so the normal by right procedure is that the administrator would approve it, it never goes to the board. If he disapproves it and they disagree with it, then
Then it go to the board. Hey, my point exactly. So no way it can be just like by right, because if it was by right, they wouldn't even have to approve it.
So,
Well, he could have voted it down and then they approved it.
did he go before the board?
Colliers Lane is on the portion of the agenda of applications that were already approved, which suggests to me that they were usually and approved by right, because there are gonna be items on that agenda. If the applicant is requesting a special use permit, the agenda will say request for special use permit at whatever specific location.
So they gotta go through that step in order to move forward.
Not if it's approved by right. I would have to look at the agenda, which I believe they're just gonna
So-
do this as
so when
a
it's-
review.
So just for clarity, so when it's on the agenda and it's been approved by right, what's the purpose of being on the agenda?
Because years ago, the commission wanted to see those cases because they wanted to know what cases came before the city for zoning approval.
So it's just really, they wanted to know who had been approved.
Information.
So it's just really there because it's already been approved, but it's just letting them know what had been approved.
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation, because you learn a lot what people have done in the city council. Probably, I'm gonna be real mindful of what I'm gonna say. But since you have brought a lot to the table and a lot, you have brought the light, you have shined the spotlight on what's really going on, sir. We need to make some changes. And if people don't want, see, that board is volunteer. You volunteer for the board. And now what I'm getting at, she said by right, because I disagree with that. I totally disagree with her assessment of by right.
Yeah, it's by, the administrator determined it was consistent use of the zoning.
I'll tell you what, you can I can tell, we can solve this. When it's by right, Mr. McDuffie's signature will be on.
Yeah.
So let's pull it up.
I have another question, Mayor, just for the administration.
Mr. D. Green?
I get, even though I don't agree, but I know sometimes that the council don't be aware of what's going on to help. So, do the administration be doing? Or do we go?
As long as they are following procedures, that's why I asked Ms. Holmes to go back and look at the steps that we're taking. As long as they were following the sequential steps, and we'll have that information.
No, I'm talking about for us like the solar companies, like, so when we found out it was going up, saying do the administration know? Was you aware of this project before we actually seen out in the community, or you was like us, we
Well,
was told about it?
let me give you a little background information. The company was working with Entergy to try to lower the cost. It's very expensive to operate the data storage plants. So they work with the Public Service Commissioner to try to get the cost down with Entergy. Very expensive, the jobs that they will provide, about 25 jobs. And they're supposed to be, as I appreciate the information, they're supposed to be good paying jobs. So after they exhausted all of their efforts to try to lower the cost of operation, then they went in a different direction, which took them to the zone
So you,
board. That's so.
and long story short, you,
Well, I'll put it this way.
but the other reason I'm asking, Mayor, because if you knew, being that, and I get the zoning process,
Okay.
but just say if the administration is coming to one of our districts, and you give us the opportunity to at least hold our people.
Okay.
So because once it's up and been granted, it seems like it's too late. And here we are when we talking, it's like it's what we up. So if the administration knew and like you say we speak transparency all the time, you give us a call, and let us go out there and do our due diligence with our district. Because I think Councilman Green's whole point was is doing it for what's right for the people.
Okay. And
Because,
that's why I gave
we
you.
work for the people don't work for us.
You're correct. And that's why I gave you the backstory on it. Now, when he went to the zoning board, and Ms. Holmes, if you'll look up that information, what was in place that would stop him from doing what he did to offset what he was doing? So we'll get more precise information to you, Mr. Green. Thank you for
I
that.
want to make a motion until then, until we can get a valid legal opinion. I still want to make a motion to stop any progression of this Collins Lane project. I want it stopped.
So just understand the dynamic of that is that it takes an ordinance to do it, and that's what's introduced tonight.
Right. But I guess it's a temporary fix until we get our ordinance, because it sounds like this is
Yeah, but you
moving
can't-
without us.
It can be an expression of your will, but it's not gonna trump the ordinance. So that
We would
legally,
just like to make it public.
So hold on, so do we have to wait 30 days in order for,
you have to wait the advertisement period. in
what's
the-
is the advertising period?
There's a touch you go.
So the administration, it kind of comes up.
I think that's not what the city was doing. They took it through the procedural steps.
So they ain't, if you didn't know, Mayor, that's definitely not fair to the city.
Because if they did it, and you didn't know, Mayor, that's a problem.
It's a real problem.
It has to be published for 3 weeks in the official journal.
But we just gonna make our wishes known.
You can send me
We
that
don't
to
want
them.
any progression.
Yeah. You can send me that information as well.
And then you have 10 days after the final publication. Yeah, where would you like, you want me to email it to you?
Because that's disheartening, Mayor, if they doing all this and you did not know. Our people are our priority, we have to make sure that they're safe, that's why we're here. So if they doing all this stuff behind the administration's back, putting up panels and we really didn't know, that's a serious problem.
What I said was, Ms. Holmes, if you would go back and follow the sequential steps, and they were following the steps that were in place. If there was no prohibition in it, then they were doing what they thought was appropriate.
I got a point of information. Ms. Holmes, she's a part of this administration. So if she's at a zoning meeting and they going through the proper procedures, because you just said the procedures, she's part of the administration. I'm finding hard pressed to believe that the mayor of the city that she worked for would not know about these panels. It just don't add up, because everybody, we're in a small community, it's a small building. So Ms. Holmes is the recording clerk. She goes to all the meetings. She just stated, you just said for her to go back and trace. It's not like she's a subcontractor. She works for the city of Bastrop. She knows all the processes, all the steps. So if Ms. Holmes knew,
Okay, I have given the backstory, I asked for going back retroactive to see the steps that took place,
I got it.
then that's the information that we will provide. Okay, where is that place of number two, resolution amend the sales tax district budget to increase or allow funding for country club and Harlem drainage project. Okay. The sales tax budget is voted on. Generally, if you'll recall, we have our regular meeting, and we post the sales tax meeting. We post it at the end of the regular meeting, then I will recess and go to the sales tax. So,
Yeah, this item just needs no action on it because this is one of those rare items that is in the sales tax district itself, and that was just something that, not realization on it. It was just, this is one of those items that was trying to get the country club road going, with be able to put it out for bid, but we're gonna have to actually notice it through the sales tax thing. So that was the design behind the item, was to get the ability so that we could let for bids on this country club road drainage project. But we'll actually have to notice that the country club road project comes from the sales tax district. The city council makes that board up, but technically you're the sales tax district board when you're in that meeting. So we have to actually do the sales tax district meeting, which doesn't have a special meeting provision, so it's fine, we'll just have to do it at the next.
The next schedule.
Correct, it's just, trying to get it done as quick as
Okay.
possible.
That's fine.
so anything else?
I think you have introduction of the last one.
Introduction, number 3, introduction, introduce ordinance to require all special zoning permits to be approved by the city council. Introduce ordinance, okay.
So what you'll see is that's the second ordinance in front of you, it's kind of what y'all were talking about, getting some of those powers back that were delegated out in 2014. Is this is a particular special use permits. And so what'll happen is there's some comments tonight about other authorities. There'll probably be a lot of discussion on what else needs to be included in this. We may end up having to amend it and notice it out again if we make more changes to subsequent categories. This one is just governing special use permits. But I would orient you that if you're gonna look at the Unicode online, look at the code, look at the planning and zoning ordinances, which is at the top. You're gonna look at section 16, which has a bunch of graphs in it. It kind of tells you how everything flows. And then we have to look and see which one of those powers you want to bring back to the council, which ones you don't.
Hey,
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
before we leave, the point of information reading. Is there nothing can be done about the second project of the solar panels? 'Cause I haven't-
Any project that's currently approved, your ordinances currently say the only way that permit can be revoked is if they violate an ordinance.
We might be able to get it. Okay. 'Cause I just, it's just like anything else. They haven't started anything over there. The city council has the final, and I'm say the city council has the final say so on any permits issued within the city of Bastrop.
That's incorrect. That was given away in 2014.
Well, since you know that it's incorrect, we asking you to correct it as a
Yeah.
council at the next, at our next meeting. Since you done researched it, and you bring it to my attention right at this meeting about the power that was given away, which I think is
It's the source of the source law right now.
so it's a bad source,
But
right?
let me ask you one
And
more
I
question.
think that's why this ordinance is probably amended some
It's gonna be really amended.
to include more things.
Go ahead, Mr. John.
You stated with the power we gave away, and I think it's like we've been going through this whole zoning process, maybe a month or two. Like, this information you just gave us today, why was we being informed? Because I know you know where we going for us, the council perspective.
Well, up until this week, nobody had articulated that they wanted, there was a lot of discussion about it, but there was nobody who articulated, yes, I want an ordinance to do it. I can draft everything that I hear in the 2 to 5 hours of the meetings we've had every time we meet. And I'm gonna have hundreds of pages of stuff, but this particularly, that book and that thing was very well explained, and I tried to explain it that night, that we can't. So they have a board of adjustments, they have all this stuff, there was nothing hidden from you, I tried to explain it that
No,
night.
I'm just asking a question, so is it something that was put on this agenda that made you go seek the information that we gave away our powers, that we didn't state before this meeting? That's what I'm asking.
No, what made me seek this out is whenever somebody asked me to specifically, and I would ask to play the tape back, I gave this information 3 meetings ago when I said they have a board of adjustments and they have these things and they don't come before the council.
No, we talking about when you stated, when you stated earlier that the council back in 2015, they gave away X amount of powers, right? So I'm asking you, when you gave us the information today, what made you give it to us today?
Today, I said it to you in relation to trying to describe how the only 4 categories come before you.
All right, so that means, so did you knew prior that we gave away our powers before today?
Correct, that was during the discussion with me and Mr. Green, we're talking about which book are you looking out of.
So
I gave that discussion, I said, y'all have a board of adjustments, y'all have an
But
administrator.
I definitely don't remember you speaking on anything about giving away, the council giving away. You might,
He was, and people were trying to tell me, oh, we don't have that. No, you do, it does, not everything comes before the council. And that night, you can play it back, it's plain as day. There's a board of adjustments. When you have a board of adjustments, that takes away some of the powers because that goes to district.
Hold up, I want, now, glad you're on the record, because previous attorney along with Miss Holmes, Ms. Holmes, we talked about the Board of Adjustments. And I was under the, when I was code enforcement, it was, since you didn't came, you gave your interpretation. But that was not the interpretation that was given. Ms. Holmes, can you explain what was explained to me? Now, if it was wrong, it comes from different sets of people.
Yeah.
Let me ask her, what was, just, you got my permission to say, what was told to me about Board of Adjustment? It was not an appeal process, because I specifically asked this question when I seen that Board of Appeals. And so, am I right, Ms. Holmes?
Wait,
Did I come?
wait, just a minute.
Let's get to the bottom of
The
it.
question goes through the chair
It's
will.
amazing that when I want to push the point of
That's the
information, it goes
process.
through the chair.
That's the process.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay.
I don't think
What is what is,
it's crazy that you say that because I don't recall doing this in the last administration, that we had to talk to you before we ask a question.
that? Okay. Ms. Holmes? Since are you ready to respond to Mr. Green's question?
Sound like we in class.
Never mind, Ms. Holmes.
No, it sounds like.
Never mind, Ms. Holmes. Never mind. Don't explain.
And so where I got my answer from, and not an interpretation, I got my answer from, I was reading that Title 16 I printed for you. I was reading those charts and things, and that's the way it flows. That's all I did was read that like to it.
You don't have to explain it.
Okay. Was there anything else on this agenda? Mr. Mr. Green? Okay. There being no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
Been moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.